What would you like the power to do? Bank of America.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you very much. You know, it's always a pleasure. We don't take this for granted, being able to get up on stage and have a little bit of conversation about what's happening in Macomb County, my hometown, my birthplace. And I'm always excited about that, but I want to thank Sandy and the Chamber for allowing us this opportunity. And again, the Chamber staff, let's hear it for the staff and pulling this together, because this is a very difficult task to do, especially in a new venue. So thank you all for what you're doing. We do want to give a shout out to our session sponsor, HNTB. If you're in the house, we want to thank you for what you're doing and that partnership we have had along the way. And by the way, that intro, well, the voice of God, did not do justice to JP, who was named after a pope, John Paul Rea, one of my deputy executives. So John Paul Rea, he happens to be what I call the Swiss Army knife of public servants. Those of you that know John Paul know exactly what I mean. He's one of the high-end Swiss Army knives too, by the way.
Yeah.
Multiple functions. You know, the high-end one is a 73. This guy's got more functions than a
Mark,
Swiss
we've
Army
been over this. A Swiss Army knife will help you break things, not necessarily fix them. So I think that's more of a testament to the way that I approach my work. So
we'll try to keep the comedic relief at a minimum here. But interesting enough, we've got about 15 minutes to kind of talk about, you know, what has worked for Macomb County over the past 15 years, and that's difficult. You notice that I'm going to keep notes, and you can tell I guess the baby boomer has to have cue cards to keep me on task. The millennial, he happens to have technology in his hand to do just that. So this kind of keeps us on task because we do have 15 minutes, and obviously Sandy's after us, and that could be a bit of a challenge for us speaking again if we run into his time. So with that being said, you know what? Macomb County 15 years ago, we were venturing into a new era of leadership, and that transition was very unique and very different because it was a new form of government, a new charter, a new way of doing business. But we looked at it as a new opportunity for us to figure out how do we engage. And we're going to kind of use a few examples of many things that have happened over the 15 years to explain what has been the secret, what has been the success, and what has helped us along the way. And you know, I think what has helped us, when we start talking about this transition into new leadership and a new era, we know we got a new mayor in the city of Detroit. We know there's going to be a new governor, a new legislature. There's a lot of changes that are going to be happening. And so with that, I look back on 15 years and I try to make a determination, what was it that worked for us? I'm going to tell you one of the key elements, and many of you talk about it, we hear about it, but it's building relationships. But not only building relationships that are founded on trust. Building relationships that are founding on trust is incredibly important, but one of the other things that I was very adamant about was making sure that we set aside the R and the D and focus on the we. It is not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about trying to figure out how do you come to a solution by working together. And that was the most interesting thing, and you hear people talking about it, especially public officials that are elected on one party or the other. They talk about reaching across the aisle to try to get things done. Well, I'm a big believer in get in the aisle to figure out how do we solve these problems, and that is my responsibility. As the elected county executive, I got elected on behalf of everybody, not on behalf of a party. I'm not there to run the party, I'm there to run the county. And so with that, you know, Macomb County, we kind of realized, you know what, embracing this idea of it's not us versus everybody, us versus someone else. It was this idea of Macomb with everybody. Macomb with everybody is kind of what we embraced, and we come to the realization no matter who we're working with and how we're engaging to try to figure out how do we lift up county government, how do we lift up the municipalities that are in Macomb County, how do we lift up the region as well as the state was very important to each and every one of us. And again, that inter-county government was the biggest challenge we had day one.
Mark, our progress has been through our partnerships, not only with all of the great friends and partners that we have in the room here today throughout the entire region, but the relationships that we forged with the 27 communities that make up Macomb County. Whether it's conversations we have at a local township, a village, a city, a citizen group, a service organization, that's really been the call for us with Macomb with everybody. Always focused on solutions, always focused on the common ground we can work together, but those initial steps and the impact that we had early on with defining what this new era of leadership was going to look like in Macomb County started internally with our Board of Commissioners and our department heads.
And our Board of Commissioners, it was very interesting. This new challenge, or starting into a new direction, was a challenge because there was a lot of responsibility taken away from the Board of Commission, the legislative body, and given to an executive branch. It was a daunting task, I'm going to tell you, 15 years ago, but that mindset of, you know, how do you transition into a new era of leadership was all about trying to figure out how do you build that trust and relationship. When we started 15 years ago, most people don't realize it. We were a $13.5 million deficit I was handed, as well as an unfunded liability with retiree health care. They were talking about challenges in Detroit and Wayne County at that time, but Macomb County kind of got out of that conversation because immediately we didn't talk about it publicly. We worked together to try to figure out how do we come up with a solution. Well, over the past 15 years in Macomb County, working alongside the Board of Commissioners, all of the other countywide elected officials, quietly we were able to solve the problem to the extent that we have had 15 years of balanced budgets. We are a AA+ bond rated county. We shored up the unfunded liability with retiree health care, and now we are fully funded with retiree health care and our pension systems. As I mentioned, $140 million in our actual surplus right now that we're working with. And interesting enough, we have bonding capacity to take care of some of our capital projects, but we paid cash for a new Marine headquarters out on Lake St. Clair that is state-of-the-art and one of the biggest facilities and best facilities in the entire state for a Sheriff's Marine Safety Program, as well as a dispatch center we call Comtech, Communications Technology Center. And as many of you probably have heard about, we are paying $250 million cash for a brand new jail in Macomb County. And that's because of the work and relationship we had originally with the Board of Commissioners and continue to work through. And I know Joe Sabatini, he happens to be here, he's our board chair, and I want to thank him for that continued relationship. But it's about building those partnerships and relationships for the internal part of county government that really make a difference. And then the external part, 27 municipalities make up Macomb County. How do we bring them together to understand this is what Macomb County is all about was one of the key issues that we wanted to deal with early on.
Yeah, Mark, bringing those 27 communities together was absolutely key for us. And really, the main foundation of bringing those 27 communities was the work that we did early on with Make Macomb Your Home. Make Macomb Your Home gave us that platform to build an authentic brand and a community connect point where with each one of our 880,000 residents, with our 19,000 businesses, with the way that we connect into a region of 5 million individuals, we were able to add the value of all those special things that make up Macomb County, that whether it's our unrivaled quality of life, whether it's our transformational economy, which continues to just generate dollars and jobs every single day, an opportunity for so many across the state of Michigan. But I think most importantly, it was a foundational point where we could help tell our story, Mark. And a big part about telling that story was not only highlighting how we added value to the region, but how we connected into all of our regional partners and really celebrated the fact that, again, for the past 15 years, 8 people a day have made Macomb their home.
Yeah, think about that. 15 years, 8 people a day have made Macomb their home. So we're not seeing a population decline in Macomb County. There's been an increase, and I think it's because of that branding strategy. And that branding strategy, believe it or not, started day one. It was kind of an offshoot of what you saw with Pure Michigan, which I think was a brilliant branding scheme for the state of Michigan. And it was really working well, and that's important to this entire region and the state to figure out how do we grow the population? How do we get people to see the quality of life assets that are here? Because the new wave, the new kids today are looking for that work-life balance. And the question becomes, what is there in the communities that surround them that want them to make Macomb their home or anywhere else in Macomb County their home? So it was brilliant strategy on behalf of the state. So we thought, let's do something with our Macomb County, the 27 municipalities, as one county of 83, to figure out how do we add into that Pure branding that they had of Pure Michigan. And again, it has worked incredibly well for us,
Mark,
especially with the Blue Economy.
You're absolutely right. And it's been fantastic, not only as we built all those narratives out about where we're going with our region, with tens of thousands of individuals highlighting the dynamic content and resources and opportunities that are in the county, but as you said, Mark, the Blue Economy and what we did with our freshwater advantage. I think there's no better arena where when we first started out in this journey of new era of leadership in the county, when we talked about our freshwater advantage, which was more about beach closures, it was more about concerns with regards to water quality. But now as we've made things more clean, clear, and connected on our waterways, we've unlocked the economic and the quality of life potential of over 160 miles of waterfront in Macomb County. It's bringing 17 million visitors to our community and region every single year, and it's a $1.8 billion economic impact to our county, our region, and our state. And Mark, it's been fascinating because again, it wasn't just one policy, it wasn't just one platform, it wasn't just cleaning up the river or cleaning up the lake or building one marina. It's the work that we did with everyone, not only internally in the county, but with all of our partners across the state of Michigan that celebrate the special freshwater assets that we have across the state of Michigan.
And so those examples, that Pure Michigan branding from Macomb County, Make Macomb Your Home, as well as the Blue Economy, those are a couple of initiatives that we worked on that were more internal for the county to try to figure out how do we get people to understand the value that Macomb County adds to the region. And we know the region as well as the state add value to Macomb. So getting past that, we realize there are other issues that are happening that affect everybody throughout throughout the entire state, but it was a concern to us, and that was the road funding issue.
Was it an issue, Mark, or was it an argument?
I'm going to tell you, we've been at this since day one, and it was interesting because the governor came out, hot and heavy with this, fix the damn roads, and she was right, trying to figure out how do we get people's attention on this because we know they're a problem. There wasn't anybody that didn't understand we had problems with roads and bridges, so fixing the damn roads. But early on, I kept looking at and talking with our Department of Roads, saying, if we could just fix the funding. If you fix the funding, we can fix the roads. So fixing the funding fixes the roads and the bridges. And so there was a lot of work that was done to try to figure out how do we get people to understand this. We at Macomb County were at the forefront of this conversation, not politically, obviously working with those that are elected leaders, but we also realized we got to get away from this partisan divide because we're getting nowhere. And it was something that the state legislature had to engage upon, and they had to be a part of the solution. I know the governor was, whether it was Snyder and or obviously Whitmer, they were both trying to figure out how do they get the legislature to come together to solve this problem. Well, we worked with HNTB, our sponsor here, to try to figure out what are our numbers. We wanted an assessment on our roads in Macomb County to get a true number, not just throwing a number out there and saying, we need $1 billion. It was about a $2.5 billion need for just Macomb County roads alone. And so with that, we partnered with our local legislators, local leaders, working with the state, working with the governors to try to find a solution to see if we couldn't get them to figure out how they come across the line with an actual funding solution for local roads.
Mark, it's never a good meeting when you're sitting across from a firm like HNTB and they highlight the fact that just in Macomb County, we had a $2.5 billion deficiency in our infrastructure network. And how do you solve a $2.5 billion challenge? It's through one partnership and one project at a time. Every single level of government, we were focused on working with everyone. What we were able to do at the federal level with HNTB and get money for a project like Innovate Mount that showcased that we could build a $200 million road. Whether it was the opportunities at the state to develop this new neighborhood roads fund, where now we have $1.8 billion annually that are coming in that will inject more resources into local roads. Whether it was at the regional level, working with SEMCOG and the road builders, advise new strategies to build more complete streets and multimodal corridors. And most importantly, Mark, the work that we did at the local level with our core programming and helping our communities work together as opposed to arguing about whose road was worse. There's a lot of work ahead of us, Mark, but we're on a really more positive journey as far as what we've done to invest in our infrastructure.
And I think the proof that Macomb is willing to work with everybody came when the governor, as well as Matt Hall, decided that they wanted to come to Macomb County to announce this road funding package and actually sign the bill on the streets in Macomb County, because we weren't there to try to figure out how do we play politics, how do we help solve this problem along the way. So that was a monumental occasion. They came up with sustainable, actually it was a substantial amount of money for local roads. And so we're fortunate because I think this legislature, this governor are going to get credited for actually solving that elusive problem we've had for a long time of local road funding. And with that being said, we finally get to see from your driveway to the highway, we are now going to start to see an impact on roads and roads being fixed in and around the entire state of Michigan.
Mark, it's been a tremendous journey that we've had on infrastructure, but I think the last topic we want to cover today is the progress that we've had of our hometown air base, Selfridge.
And JP wants to get right into Selfridge, talk about those fighters, but I back him up all the time because we have come a long way when it comes to manufacturing, automotive. We've always been there, but even our defense industry. We have highlighted that, and we've got a lot of attention, not just from Macomb County. We are the defense capital of the Midwest. We always been. And I get him nervous every time I say it. Working together with our regional partners in the state, there has been an incredible push. I say that at some point in time, we are going to be the defense capital of America. Are you with me on that? The defense capital of America? Thank you. Thank you very much. That just makes him nervous every time I say that.
It does, because it's not true. So maybe we don't say that in front of 1,000 people.
Puts a little pressure on the boy, but that's all right. That's what I'm here for. The Swiss Army knife has got to pull out one of the little gadgets on that one. So, but again, we talk about Selfridge Air Base. It all started with the generals realizing that we're going to be losing A-10s. They're going to be out of there. What are we doing about Selfridge Air Base, which, by the way, isn't just an asset for Macomb County. It's our hometown air base. It's an asset for the entire state of Michigan. All those installations are. So what are we doing to try to figure out how do we push forward to get a replacement for that fighter mission was incredibly important for the entire state of Michigan. And by the way, for our nation's defense, because Selfridge Air Base plays an integral part in our nation's defense. And so that effort and pulling together to try to push forward, boy, I'm going to tell you, the most unlikely of scenarios happened this past year when President Trump flew into Selfridge Air Base and stood alongside Governor Whitmer. The two of them, opposing each other on political ends, came together because the president was the president of the United States at that moment. The governor was the governor of the state of Michigan, realizing they need to come together to solve this problem. And what did they do? They announced that we're getting 21 new fighter jets at Selfridge Air Base I mean, what an incredible testament of coming together, solving a problem by working together, and now we are not going to have to worry about Selfridge Air Base and a closure in our near future.
Mark, it's just been absolutely tremendous with all of the partners at Selfridge. Conversations that started early on 15 years ago about the base closing. Now the fact that we've got hundreds of millions of dollars that are going into new infrastructure, billions of dollars of new jets, and most importantly, an $850 million annual economic impact that's helping rise up all of the defense installations.
And they're getting ready to pull us off stage. I'm looking at the timer. So hey, folks, if you were looking at the future and we're talking about leadership and what's the new era of leadership, you know, if you do what Macomb County has done over the years, and I'm going to say it, putting the R's and D's aside, leading and building trusting relationships, incredibly important, and this Macomb with everybody mantra. Let's continue to build relationships based on trust. Let's focus on us rather than the dividing nature of what we tend to want to talk about or lead with. It's incredibly important. And again, Macomb with everybody, we're going to continue to work with the entire region of the state of Michigan. But as the new mayor of the city of Detroit, Mary Sheffield, would say, to do that, let's continue to rise together. Macomb with everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.